What if the movie that taught us stereotypes are meaningless actually proves they're inescapable? Today, we're talking about The Breakfast Club and the Monday morning reset button no one wants to acknowledge. The Breakfast Club is about 5 students who walk into Saturday detention as stereotypes and supposedly walk out as people. Assistant Principal Vernon assigns them an essay asking, "Who do you think you are?" A question designed to strip away labels and force introspection. Claire Standish arrives in expensive boots, representing wealth and popularity. Andrew Clark is the jock, trained to dominate. Brian Johnson is the academic overachiever, armed with politeness and precision. Allison Reynolds hides under layers of clothing and silence, performing strangeness as protection. John Bender walks in last, loud and defiant, wearing his working-class resentment like armor. The promise is simple: peel back the performance, and you'll find shared humanity underneath. For most of the runtime, the film delivers. The problem is what happens when the promise expires. The emotional center arrives when the 5 sit in a circle and explain why they're in detention. Andrew admits he taped another student's buttocks together to prove his masculinity. Claire confesses she skipped class for approval from friends she doesn't even like. Brian reveals he brought a flare gun to school because failing shop class felt like the end of the world. Allison admits her parents ignore her, and being strange is the only way to be seen. Bender discloses the abuse he endures at home, showing the scars his father left on his body. These confessions are raw admissions of fear, shame, and survival. The silence that follows Brian's suicide confession is reverent. This is the section that justifies the film's reputation. But honesty is not the same as change. Understanding why someone behaves a certain way does not dismantle the systems that reward or punish that behavior. The Breakfast Club mistakes emotional intimacy for structural transformation, and the ending proves it. By the time the students prepare to leave detention, 2 romantic pairings have formed: Andrew and Allison, Claire and Bender. On the surface, these relationships seem to validate the film's anti-stereotype message. The jock falls for the weirdo. The princess kisses the criminal. But look closer, and the pairings restore exactly what the confession supposedly dismantled. Andrew and Allison's relationship only becomes possible after Allison is physically transformed. Claire gives her a makeover, removing her dark eyeliner, styling her hair, dressing her in softer colors. The film frames this as Allison coming out of her shell, but the message is clear: she is lovable only after she stops being strange. Andrew does not have to change his appearance, behavior, or social role to earn affection. Allison does. Sheedy herself has criticized this ending. She wanted the transformation to be simpler. Allison removing her oversized sweater to reveal the plain white shirt underneath, wearing her true self with pride rather than conforming to conventional beauty standards. Molly Ringwald supported this idea, hoping Claire's gesture would be about validation rather than alteration. John Hughes refused. The 1980s wanted their ugly duckling becomes a swan moment, and the film delivered it regardless of what it communicated about acceptance. Claire and Bender's pairing is even more troubling. Their dynamic throughout the film is hostile, with Bender repeatedly mocking Claire's privilege, calling her frigid and cornering her physically. He peeks under her skirt without consent. He puts his head between her legs while hiding under the table. These moments were played for laughs in 1985, but they read differently now. Ringwald herself has said she finds the romance difficult to root for. When watching the film with her daughter, particularly the message it sends, that harassment is foreplay, that cruelty earns affection, that survival tactics born from abuse should be rewarded with a kiss. The pairing appears to cross class lines, but it actually reinforces them. Bender's abuse and poverty are romanticized as edgy authenticity, while Claire's wealth positions her as the prize he wins for surviving the day. She does not challenge her privilege. She softens into compassion, which is a much safer transformation than actual accountability. The film allows the boys to remain fundamentally unchanged while the girls must adapt to earn love. When Vernon demands the essay, Brian volunteers to write it. Writing is his domain. The others accept without protest, which reveals something important about who gets to speak. Brian's letter is eloquent and sincere. He declares that they are all the Breakfast Club, rejecting singular labels in favor of collective identity. The closing lines are iconic. Each one of us is a brain and an athlete and a basket case, a princess and a criminal. It sounds like victory, but the letter is also extraordinarily safe. It does not challenge Vernon's authority. It does not name the abuse Bender endures, the academic pressure that pushed Brian toward suicide, or the class inequalities that divide Claire and Bender's worlds. It reframes systemic issues as personal misunderstandings. The letter suggests that if adults simply recognize teenagers as multifaceted, everything would be fine. But recognition without structural change is just good manners. Brian's letter is written for Vernon's approval, not for liberation. It gives the authority figure exactly what he wants. Proof that detention worked, that order has been restored. The students have been allowed to feel seen, but not empowered to demand change. The Breakfast Club ends with a freeze frame of Bender's Andrew's raised fist as "Don't You Forget About Me" plays. It promises permanence. The students have bonded. They understand each other. They will not forget. But the film never shows Monday morning. We do not see the cafeteria seating chart. We do not see whether Claire acknowledges Bender in the hallway or whether Allison reverts to her old clothes when Andrew's friends make jokes. We do not see whether Brian sits with them at lunch or whether the group dissolves back into their separate social circles. The absence of Monday is not an oversight. It is a deliberate narrative choice that protects the fantasy. Saturday detention exists as a liminal space, a temporary suspension of social rules where honesty is possible because there are no witnesses and no consequences. The students are free to be vulnerable because their peers are not watching, their parents are not judging, and their reputations are not at stake. But high school does not operate in a vacuum. Social hierarchies are maintained through daily reinforcement: who sits where, who speaks to whom, who is mocked, and who is protected. The freeze frame ending asks us to believe that 8 hours of honesty can overwrite years of conditioning, but the film itself does not believe this. If it did, it would show us Monday. This is Ladies First, watching women in movies. Here we empower women by reviewing and discussing films that highlight their stories, struggles, and achievements. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.